But this deity over here is playing an instrument, and if you look very carefully, you might recognize that it is the pan flute. So he has the god Pan right on his head. He's the representative of Satan on this planet. That is what the symbolism says. Whether we like it or not, that might sound incredibly harsh, and I apologize for saying it as bluntly. Now let's go back to another movie which is used as an acronym. They can take snippets of history and turn it around to allegorize their existence. Robin Hood and Little John, the famous Sherwood Forest couple, and the merry robbers who took from the rich and gave to the poor. Now, who is more concerned about the poor today than anyone else on this planet? Isn't it the Pope? He's constantly saying we must take from the rich and give to the poor. He's the ultimate Robin Hood on this planet. Now, in this story, it's even in the form of a statue in England. They've glorified this story. Now, it has an ancient origin, but it has been allegorized by them to meet their needs. Now, in the animated Walt Disney one, this is John. Again, you have a John, who is the sophisticated one, the clever one, the one who wields the sword. Now, in the previous John that we had, Peter, Pan, and Mary, and John, he can also be an acronym. The one who wields the sword, will it be the white pope or the black pope? It'll be the black pope, right? Now, let's go to this story. Here we have Little John, and there you have Robin Hood in an animated form. But I want to show you the hat that they're wearing. And I want to remind you of Peter Pan, that also has the hat with a feather. So it's the same symbolism that they are using. Now, in the story, Robin Hood has his band of merry men in the forest, and he's fighting against the evil lords that control England. Now, England, of course, always was a renegade papal state and had to be constantly subdued. So the evil ones are the ones who run England, and the good ones are the ones who will take care of the needs of the poor, which the others never did. So again, good becomes what? Evil, and evil becomes good. Now, in the story, one day he meets Little John, and he says, "What are you doing here?" And they start fighting, and they battle on a log. Eventually, Little John actually wins the battle and smacks Robin Hood so that he falls into the water. And they all laugh and make friends, and he takes him into his band. And Robin Hood actually tells him that you are greater and stronger and better in battle than me. You lead the people. But Little John declines and says, no, 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 you lead the people. But when Robin Hood gets captured, the one who takes over the leadership is Little John. So in the acronym, who is who? This will be the leader, the front leader, and this will be the power behind the front leader. So this becomes the papacy, and this becomes the black papacy. So it's the white pope and the black pope. And let's see how this unfolds. Now his name is John. Whose name is John? All of them are John, right? All of them are John. John is an acronym. Now the John that they're actually referring to is mostly John the Baptist. And we'll see why in a moment. News, UK, Jihadi John. Extremists not radicalized by MI5. So there are rumors that MI5 actually radicalized the people that they're fighting now. Well, if you go back into history, it's very fascinating that all the so-called enemies were trained and received not only their training, but their weapons from the very ones who became their super enemies in the end. The Mossad trained many of the jihadists and the terrorist groups that plague the world today, Al-Qaeda and all of these. So these are all groups that have been set up. Now, this mass murderer, or this brutal murderer who always wears in black, has got the acronym Jihadi John. Okay, but that's not his real name. His real name is Muhammad Mwazi, which has nothing to do with John. And then, all over the news, they plastered the image of Jihadi John beheading his victims, in this case, Foley. Now, question, is this real? Or is this what they want you to believe? Now, all you have to do is go to the web pages and have a look at people who are in the know, in the techno world, and there are literally hordes of web pages which will tell you that this is probably one of the worst Hollywood stunt productions that you can imagine, with analysis and all of this. I don't want to get into too much of a detail, but there are hundreds of skeptics out there who say, this never happened, this is not real. So I wanted to know the various actors, who are they and what happened. Now, according to USA Today, James Foley was educated at the Catholic Jesuit College in Milwaukee. So this is Jesuit involvement again. And if you start reading about the jihadists, you will see Jesuits involved. Jesuits priests disappearing, not reappearing. Jesuits everywhere along the line. Is it possible that they are actually the masterminds training? How does the master strategist work behind the scenes? Doesn't he create the enemies? Doesn't he pull the strings behind the scenes? Doesn't he achieve his objective through Hegelian dialectic? Doesn't he create the enemy which unites humanity? These are questions which I wish to raise. Now, all of these, of course, if they are trained in Jesuit colleges, are also trained in theatrics. And if we have a look at just the political scene and the great leaders of the world, John Paul II, wasn't he a known actor? His counterpart on the other side of the waters was Ronald Reagan. Wasn't he a known actor? Yes. The governor of California, Arnold Schwarzenegger, is he not a trained actor? So there's a lot of theatrics involved. And whether this ever happened or whether it didn't happen, the world has to be shocked by the beheading. Beheading is probably one of the worst things. Now, if I go to Wikipedia, Jihadi John is also called John the Beetle. Now, the Beetle, John Lennon, was a known Luciferian, and he was controlled by the Jesuits directly. The Beetle group was controlled by the Jesuits. And he said, I sold my soul to Satan. And he's also called Jailer John. Now John is appearing just a little bit too frequently for my liking. And there are pseudonyms associated with a member of Islamic State of Iraq, ISIL, ISIS, and they behead various people. All right, so you have all of these acronyms. Now let's just go a little bit further into this. The Jesuits, Ebola, and beheadings, trying to get the New World Order going. Now, I'm not interested in the quality of this web page. Whether it's a good web page or a bad web page is irrelevant at this point, because people will take it anywhere. But what is true, that black magic Freemasonry has the symbol for the degrees 9 to 11, which depict a decapitated head by a short sword. Let me tell you a little secret. Why would they use the symbol of a beheaded individual by a short sword? Let me tell you a little secret. Why would they use the symbol of a beheaded individual? And why is the name John always associated with these organizations? Because John the Baptist is the mega saint of many of the esoteric occult movements. And I'll give you some details as to this. Here is the UK column. So for instance, June the 24th, John the Baptist's Day was appointed a Masonic holiday. on which the members were to assemble, perform certain rites, and partake of a common meal. Jews and Freemasons in Europe, etc., etc., Harvard Press, etc. So, now we're getting into the nitty-gritty of the matter. The Bunch of Grapes Tavern mentioned in the Poe chapter was called the St. John's Lodge No. 1. Satanist Aleister Crowley, a 33-degree Freemason who influenced the Beatles tremendously, by the way, sometimes used the alias John St. John. So when you attach an alias like John, then it is a signal that there is an occult connection. But none of the usage has anything to do with piety. Aleister Crowley was one of the most evil men on the planet, with the most evil rituals that you can imagine, which should never be spoken of in good places. So in actuality, it is a vicious mockery. What is memorialized is the manner of St. John's death. It is a constant source of celebration and a constant reminder to anti-Masons of what can happen to them. But even deeper, because now they're just thinking on a Masonic level, let's go one deeper on a Jesuitical level. It is a constant reminder of the victory of Satan over Jesus Christ. We saw it in the movie, The Passion of the Christ, where they reverse the issues. So when they behead John the Baptist, it is a symbol of the victory of Lucifer against the followers of Jesus Christ. They're celebrating the beheading. They're not celebrating the saint. Are you with me? Okay. Now, how did Paul die? In the same way. Now, if we go through the names of the popes, there are 23 popes with the name John. 23 with the name John. What are they standing for? Are they standing for John the Baptist or the other John? They don't tell you which one, but it's John the Baptist. And there are 6 popes with the name Paul. And there are 2 popes with the name John Paul. That's a double whammy, putting both into that name frame. What are they standing for, and whose side are they on? I know I'm on dangerous ground, but I'm sticking my neck out. Let's go further. Joseph Ignatia Guillotin was the physician. Dr. Joseph Guillotin was a French physician who proposed on 10 October 1789 the use of a device to carry out the death penalties in France, the guillotine. But what is not known is that he was also a Jesuit. So who is the ultimate beheader on this planet? Jihadi John or the Jesuit order? And what they did in the French Revolution to bring in their new system of government, which we've talked about in the past in Revelation chapter 11, this beast that rises from the bottomless pit with this godless philosophy, will be controlled by people who celebrate victory over Christ by beheading. So to go and be all sanctimonious now and say how evil it is that these people out there are doing this and forgetting the history of where it comes from is sanctimonious to the highest degree. Not that I am propagating beheading anyone. This is the Cathedral of St. John the Divine. It is the largest cathedral, arguably, in the world. It is the Episcopal Cathedral, which is, of course, totally controlled by occultism and Freemasonry, as everybody who has just done the slightest bit of research will find. Now, the very name is a blasphemy, because St. John was never divine. Only Satan said that man can become divine. Now, this cathedral of St. John the Divine, officially the Cathedral Church of St. John, the great divine in the city of Diocese of New York. They don't really tell you whether it's John the Baptist or whether it's John the other one. Enough that the acronym is John. Inside, for a while, they hung up the statue of the female Christ, which is a blasphemy in itself.